Today we're talking all about catastrophizing and making problems a lot worse than they actually are. Welcome to another video. For those of you who are new here, my name is Nena. I'm a life coach that specializes in personal development, and on our channel we talk about everything having to do with our emotional well-being and living our most awesome life possible. So if you aren't already a subscriber, please take a moment and become one. We definitely want you to stay connected. So today's topic really hits home with me personally because catastrophizing is a habit that I have definitely struggled with my entire adult life. If you're not familiar with the term catastrophizing, it simply means that we take a situation or an event and we add a lot of irrational thoughts to it to make it seem a lot more extreme than it actually is. This habit causes a lot of unnecessary pain, anxiety, and suffering because we are reacting to situations in a way that is not equal to the actual event. So we can catastrophize in current situations, and we can also catastrophize situations that are far in the future. So we are basically just kind of putting a negative spin on either one. So if we're talking about our current situation, we may have just made like a small mistake at work and we are going to catastrophize and start to worry that we are going to get fired over that mistake. Another example might be if we haven't gotten a date in a while, we decide that we are unlovable. So we are making it seem like that one little thing equals this big, huge thing. And of course, when it comes to future catastrophizing, the sky is literally the limit. We are going to think about the absolute worst case scenarios possible. We're going to create a story around them and we are going to snowball it until it is just this terrifying scenario, and we are going to have the reaction internally just as if that was really going to happen. So this is a very, very common habit, and like I said, it's something that I have struggled with in the past and something that I struggle with in the present if I'm not careful about, checking in and making sure that I'm not doing it. So if this is so common, why do we do it? Why do we use catastrophizing as a strategy for worry when these are things that mentally we probably know aren't really going to happen? There are three basic reasons why we catastrophize. The first one is that as human beings, we like to have control. We want to have control over the things of our life, which is perfectly understandable, although it is not realistic at all. But we like to at least create that illusion of control. So when we use catastrophizing, it is actually something that will later on kind of provide the most relief when those situations don't happen. So when that's our motivation for catastrophizing, it's usually because we've been given some kind of information that is inconclusive. So we are waiting for an answer about something. We have test results that are coming in, or we have a phone call that may or may not come, or something of the like. So we are going to come to a definitive conclusion and just be happy if that isn't actually what comes into fruition. It is again very common to get some degree of comfort with having something definitive. So if we decide on something, even if it's negative, as mentally what's going to happen, that sometimes makes us feel less uneasy than when things are up in the air. So that is one possible motivation for this catastrophizing. Another reason might be that we are seeking outward reassurance for something not happening. So let's say our concern is over something medical. We may go to WebMD or go to other sources and look up the worst thing it could possibly be to give us reassurance that it is not going to be that. So we are going to prove to ourselves it's not whatever these worst case scenarios are. That's another form of catastrophizing. The thought process is similar, however, because again, we were initially going to those worst case scenarios, and at minimum, we are considering them. So that is also something that can be very negative for us. And the third reason we might be catastrophizing is simply because it is a habit. So like I said, it's definitely something that has been a habit and a recurring theme throughout my own life, but it is something that is wired into a lot of people. If it's something that we get in the pattern of doing, it is a hard habit to break. So we are just conditioned to immediately think about that, again, worst case scenario, and expand and build on it from there. and years and years and years of doing it makes it something that we jump to when anything even potentially negative is happening. So if we feel that we're really addicted to this negative thinking, or if we're using catastrophizing in any of the other ways, we want to really step back and think about what thoughts are causing us to catastrophize in the first place. Are there certain thoughts that are, for whatever reason, more threatening to us? And if so, we want to identify those. Or are we in the habit of just kind of catastrophizing everything? So are there certain triggers, or is basically everything or anything a potential trigger for us? Always, when we can figure out the why behind it, it's going to help us a lot to kind of get over this behavior. When we have awareness, we can start to do the internal work necessary to fix these things. A strategy that is actually helpful to a lot of people is to gain control over their thoughts by offering yourself a specific designated worry time. Maybe it's in the morning or whatever time is best for you, but do give yourself time to consider all the things that may be potentially bothering you. So if you have this time set out to think about these negative things, or maybe even get them out on paper, that helps you feel that you are addressing it in some way. You are acknowledging to yourself that these are concerns for you, but you're not letting them get out of hand. So you say you have 15 minutes to think about all the things in your life that are of concern to you, and then when you're done with that, you are going to leave it. You are going to, throughout your day, catch yourself whenever you tend to gravitate to these negative thoughts, and you're going to pull yourself back into the present moment. The only time that you're going to really allow yourself to have these thoughts and considerations will be at that designated worry time. Another thing you can do during this worry time is to really think through the imagined ending of this scenario. So of course, we have built a scary story, so we have some kind of terrifying ending, and we want to go ahead and rate the likelihood that that is going to be what actually happens. So you're going to kind of check in with yourself and, see how realistic your thought process actually is. We, of course, want to be challenging all negative thoughts, because all negative thoughts, or most negative thoughts, are completely fiction. We are just making up stories, and we are making up scenarios, and if we don't, really check in with them, there is no telling how far we're going to go with them. So the catastrophe will get bigger and bigger and grander, and the habit itself will grow. Think about instead what the more likely scenarios are, which is always a lot less terrifying than what we are allowing ourselves to think about. So we can also use an anchor thought to help us bring us back to what is more comforting and more realistic for us. And I'll leave a link to a video about how to use anchor thoughts, which is really helpful when you do have those anxious tendencies. Remember, it may take time to rewire your brain and reinforcement and a lot of practice, but self-awareness is key. Just think about when these thoughts are happening, bring yourself back to the present moment, use again anchor thoughts if you need to, but remember that you're going to have to walk yourself through this every single time until you're able to adopt that new habit. You don't have to be a victim of catastrophizing. We are in control of our own thoughts, and the more intention we put behind them, the more easy it will become to be a little bit more realistic with our thinking, which is definitely going to help us become a lot less anxious. I hope this video was helpful to you today, and if it was, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone else who may need to hear this message today. Also, again, if you aren't already a subscriber, please become one, and I thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope you have a truly extraordinary day.